Mock Draft Monday, the three best words in all of YouTube. Welcome everyone here back to Utility Sports. And for today's mock draft, I wanted to do a lottery simulation. I had referenced that in my previous mock draft a couple weeks back on the channel. And with March Madness right around the corner here, let's have some fun. Let's get some craziness in here. Get everyone ready for what is the absurdity of March Madness. If you guys do enjoy the content today, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content as well. Also, please hype the video today and leave a comment down below. It could be something as simple as, hey Sheldon, I've been watching you for this long. Or it could be about your favorite draft prospect, your favorite team. Just leave some kind of comment down below. I do read every single comment, and it also does help the channel out a lot in the algorithm. I do appreciate you guys big time. You've been huge supporters of me. And let's get into that lottery simulation now. Of course, there's a lot to watch for. Indiana has pick protections. Utah's got their pick protections on here as well. Portland, obviously, they're lottery protected. So there's a lot that could still change down the stretch of the season here. But this lottery simulation and the real life lottery is going to change a lot. Let's see what we're working with in this mock draft. And the Dallas Mavericks move up to first overall. Some are going to call it rigged. Oh boy, I'm sure the comment section is absolutely loving this right now. Comment your thoughts on Dallas moving up to the #1 spot, not just last year, but if that were to happen once again. And wow, look at this. The New Orleans Pelican pick moves up as well, giving Atlanta a top 3 pick in this mock draft. We'll talk about that when we get to that selection. Chicago moves all the way up to number 4. There is a lot to evaluate, break down. The Clippers end up getting a top 5 pick now, with the Pacers falling down 4 spots. So a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. Let's jump over into that mock draft now. Again, comment your thoughts, but thanks guys, and let's get into it. Special thank you as well to College Basketball Analytics at www.cbbanalytics.com for all of the data that you'll see throughout this video today. They do a tremendous job with their packages. So if you want $30 off at their site for any of their 1, 3, 6, or 12-month packages, you can use code UTILITY over on their website. And let's jump in now to that first overall pick, the Dallas Mavericks. Again, at the very top, while Luka Doncic is hitting game winners for the Los Angeles Lakers, the Mavericks, with Cooper Flagg and now another crack at the very top of the draft here in this 2026 NBA mock draft, have a really prime opportunity to reshape the direction of their franchise moving forward after Nico Harrison left this team and franchise in the dumpster. So first overall here, I have the Dallas Mavericks after a lot of thought, after going back and forth quite a bit. I have the Mavericks here selecting forward AJ Dybantsa out of BYU. And listen, as much as I love Cam Boozer and as much respect I have for Darryn Peterson, I did land on AJ Dybantsa here first overall in this mock draft. Not only does it seem like a majority of the draft community and fans around the draft itself are leaning toward AJ Dybantsa, but I could also understand the rationale for an NBA team to land on that decision, specifically with his ability to get to the free throw line. And from an eye test standpoint, he has arguably the best collection of gathers that I've seen from an 18, 19-year-old prospect in the last 5-10 years. It's very apparent that this guy's going to be able to get to the free throw line consistently. Obviously can score off the bounce. He's very adept at using his pivot foot to elongate his strides after picking up the basketball and then finishing plays in the mid-range area. He has the shot diet that you typically look at for a 1A type of player, and he's very, very accustomed to scoring the basketball. Did it all throughout his high school career. There was really no drop-off at all in his adjustment to playing collegiate basketball for BYU, where he was absolutely stellar all season long in Kevin Young's offense. And I think specifically the fit with Dallas next to Cooper Flagg is really unique because the Mavericks, with Kyrie Irving coming back from injury, hopefully a healthy Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, we'll see what their futures look like in Dallas. But this Mavs team does have a lot of talent. And the question then becomes, can Cooper Flagg and AJ Dybantsa become somewhat of Boston West in the Western Conference, with Cooper Flagg kind of mirroring the career of Jason Tatum, perhaps. Both of them attended Duke. Obviously, Flagg is a player who has been tremendous in his rookie season. Very likely will win Rookie of the Year. He's just been absolutely stellar. His two-way play somewhat mimics Jason Tatum's in a way, with his ability to guard up and down the lineup, protect the rim a little bit, rebound the ball, push, go. And obviously he's been stretched this year in Dallas, and then also was stretched in Jon Scheyer's offense as a primary creator for the Blue Devils a year ago. And then Dybantsa coming out of BYU, can he be your Jaylen Brown type with his ability to drive the basketball, get paint touches, kick out of that? That's a key area that we've seen in development this year for Dybantsa, is getting off the ball, beating gap help, being a little bit more decisive as a playmaker. And while it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for BYU this season, they haven't maybe achieved to the level that many were hoping prior to the year. Dybantsa has still taken, I think, very many strides forward as an individual player. He does go first overall in this mock draft, and if we do look at his overall numbers this season, one of the big concerns for me is just going to be that three-point attempt rate, which is why, again, I kind of likened him to Jaylen Brown. Now, that's not really going to be the comp that I end on with Dybantsa at the end of the cycle, but I do think it would be a very fascinating fit here in Dallas, kind of like how Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have coexisted so effectively together for so long in Boston. I think that Dybantsa and Flay could be a really fun pairing together in the front court as hybrid forwards. You could play bigger with Dybantsa kind of as a guard. Obviously, Flay has on-ball skills as well to work with. And then, for Dybantsa, transitioning to the college game, even though he hasn't shot the three ball incredibly well, the fact that his true shooting percentages hovered over 60% pretty much the entire season on incredibly gaudy usage has been, I think, a very telling sign. And a lot of that comes back down to that free throw rate, where he's able to get to the free throw line a ton. Very impressive numbers all year for Dybantsa, and seeing him stick in that blue would not be the worst thing ever for Dallas Mavericks fans moving forward. The Washington Wizards at pick number 2. This becomes a very tricky talking point because Washington did trade for Anthony Davis this year and Trae Young. So this team has invested some of their future draft picks, some big salary slots toward Anthony Davis and Trae Young, assuming that they look to keep those two guys there in Washington for at least the short-term future, talking about the next 2 or 3 years. But the nice thing about Washington is they have a lot of guys on cost-controlled rookie contracts. Alex Sarr, former number 2 overall pick. And this draft is not a bad draft to have the 2nd overall pick either. There's really not a consolation prize in this draft in the top 3. There are 3 genuinely number 1 caliber type of players in this draft, which has made it such a fun draft to talk about this year. Now, do you go with a super talented forward like Cam Boozer, who maybe has a little bit of that positional overlap with Anthony Davis, or do you draft someone who has positional overlap with the guy you spent a top 10 pick on last year in Trey Johnson by selecting someone like Darryn Peterson? Given the questions about the long-term future of the Washington Wizards and about their actual long-term commitment to both Trae Young and Anthony Davis, I decided to go best player available, 2nd overall here for them. So with this selection, I have the Washington Wizards selecting forward Cam Boozer out of Duke. Incredibly impressive prospect. Now, people are going to point to some of the shortcomings. They're going to really highlight athleticism. I don't necessarily think athleticism is quite the problem. I'll touch on that here in just a second. Now, the fit around Anthony Davis and Alex Sarr, you're not going to play the 3 of them all together super consistently. But let's be honest about it. Anthony Davis, if you look at his availability night to night in the NBA, I really don't think you should be making the 2nd overall pick completely in the mind of, okay, what fits Anthony Davis best? I think you should be looking at, okay, what fits Alex Sarr best? What fits Trae Johnson best? And we can include Trae Young into that. Trae Young is 27 years old. For the majority of his career, he's been mostly available. This season, obviously, has been kind of a different story for him. But Cam Boozer is a guy that just checks all of the boxes for me. He's an elite rebounder for his position. He's got great size. He can test vertically without fouling. He does a tremendous job passing the basketball. Really, there's a real argument he's the best passer in this entire draft, especially at the very top of the draft. He's a better passer by a large margin than anyone named AJ Dybantsa or Darryn Peterson in this draft. He's a tremendous prospect. You can run a variety of different actions with him. Now, when it does come to those shortcomings, you're mostly looking at that mid-range area. And I think there's a real question. If you look back at the ACC conference tourney and you specifically look at his matchup against Virginia, where Ugana and Yenso was just unbelievable in that game with a ton of blocks, set an ACC conference championship game record with blocks in that one. A lot of people started to highlight, Cam Boozer's athleticism, his lift off the floor. That really wasn't the issue in that game. What was mostly happening, Virginia was basically playing a zone by sticking on Yenso at the rim for a majority of that one. So any Cam Boozer mid-post touch was met with a second body. And especially with Duke dealing with so many guys on the shelf right now, Patrick Ngongba, as well as Caleb Foster, two really prevalent names for them from their mainstay rotation throughout the regular season. Duke was a little short-handed. A lot more was on Cam Boozer's plate in terms of creation, which is a good thing, by the way, because he's being stretched, and they're putting him out of position a little bit with Ngongba out. Boozer played more of the center spot than he typically does, but I really do think if you look at his shot diet, what was missing for him against Virginia was shots in that mid-range area. He only has taken 13 mid-range shots this year. I know the main talking point for him has been, oh, well, he's a mid-post warrior. Yes, he gets a lot of catches there, but what he's typically been able to do against college guys, especially with another big on the floor, is get to drop steps and finish at the rim, get to his right baby hook, play through physicality that way. Against Virginia, that wasn't really possible because they were sending two to him so consistently, and Yenso was basically zoning him up the entire night until the very end of the game when Duke went to some ghost action to take advantage of Yenso in a few different ways. That was very successful for setting up Isaiah Evans in that game. And I think for Washington, not only do you have Alex Sarr, someone who can stretch the floor a little bit as a center for you, but with Trae Young's gravity as a scorer and passer, there's a lot of other alleviation tactics that Washington is going to be able to have to maximize Cam Boozer. And then again, it's not just an athletic question. It's a, hey, can we get this guy a turnaround jump shot? Can we get him a bump shoulder, a shoulder bump lean fade type of look where that adds to his skill set. A stride stop would go a long way in Cam Boozer's game as well. I think there's some missing skill elements, which is what we've been talking about all year long. It's not an athletic disposition, in my opinion. It's more so about, okay, what skills does he not have right now? He's one of the youngest players in this entire draft. He's about a half year younger than both Dybantsa and Peterson. I know a lot of people look at Boozer as kind of this polished, finished product. It's because he's so skilled and talented already, but he's extremely young, and there's a lot of room to grow. He's going to get even stronger. He'll probably get even a little bit quicker in the NBA when his conditioning and his lower body catches up to his upper body frame. I think he's going to be tremendous in the league. I think this is a home run for the Wizards. I know people are going to say, oh, it's a little weird next to Anthony Davis. You're not basing the second overall pick in this draft on the future of Anthony Davis. That's just not the decision that Washington should or will make if they do have this selection. Moving on to pick number 3, the Atlanta Hawks here now. Remember, this pick moved up in the lottery simulation that we did via New Orleans from last year's trade. Obviously, this is going to be one of the main picks we have to watch for on draft lottery night. But third overall, I think it's pretty point blank and simple. I have the Atlanta Hawks here selecting guard Darryn Peterson out of Kansas. And I think this is a real home run, not only for Atlanta, but also for Darryn Peterson from a destination standpoint. Not only did the Hawks sell off of Trae Young, but they've really elevated the role of Jaylen Johnson within the last 24 months. Jaylen Johnson, first couple of years, was mostly playing off of Trae Young, playing in that short role, catching in the middle of the floor, attacking out of advantage. That has completely shifted to Jaylen Johnson being the central focal point of the offense for Quinn Snyder. And Quinn Snyder, who is an extremely smart mind, one of the best organized offensive system creators in the entire league, with the way that he builds his offenses, the way that he supports ball movement and player movement. Darryn Peterson, who has been kind of reduced to an off-ball movement role for Kansas this year, which I think is minimizing his actual talent on the court. I think he'll get the best of both worlds in Atlanta. With a creative mind like Quinn Snyder, we get to see him running off of off-ball screens and still being the guy that's been very successful on a permanent basis for the Kansas Jayhawks. But in Atlanta as well, we're going to get to see him on the ball with Jaylen Johnson maybe going back to some screen and dive and play out of the middle of the floor as a short roll guy. There's a lot of synergy that I think these two guys between Darryn Peterson and Jaylen Johnson that they can quickly find together, because their skills, to me, feel like they're going to be very synergistic, and there's going to be a lot of balance between the two of them. And I think, especially for Quinn Snyder, getting a guy like Darryn Peterson who can definitely compete on the defensive end of the floor. He gets in the passing lanes a lot. He's very disruptive. I think all of that will be very good for Atlanta's defense. And then I also think just offensively, it's another guy who can really put the ball in the hoop. You know, even when you go through evaluating process and maybe Darryn Peterson doesn't have the rim volume you like right now, maybe his drives are down, and obviously he's been dealing with that hamstring, which I think is a big reason why behind all of that, as well as Kansas's actual system and spacing under Bill Self with Bryson Tiller and Flory Badunga. I think there's a lot of things at play, a lot of variables that have kind of hindered Darryn Peterson outside of just his health this year. There's a lot of really, really great stuff that Darryn Peterson can do on a basketball floor. I think Atlanta is going to be one of the spots that can really elevate it. When you look at his actual production this season, I know a lot of people right now are talking about, well, his high school tape this, his high school tape that. And listen, his high school tape was really brilliant, and he had some unbelievable moments his final year in high school. But the college tape isn't bad at all. It's not just a projection based on high school numbers. He has been extremely productive. His usage is through the roof. And again, in Kansas's offense, that has mostly lent itself toward a super high three-point attempt rate. Almost half of his shots this year are threes, which is kind of good, kind of bad. Again, I'd like to see that rim volume tick up. But I think the system specifically is kind of diminishing the returns for him while he's also dealing with some of that physical injury stuff, the cramping, the hamstring. I think there's just a lot of things that are kind of limiting him that are outside of his control right now. And I think if you draft a guy like Darryn Peterson in the top 3, obviously the plan is for the next 4 to 10 years of your franchise. And I think the results are going to be very, very good for whichever team selects him, and especially Atlanta if they can pair him up with Jaylen Johnson there in the ATL. The Chicago Bulls here, pick number 4. I think this is a fascinating spot. I was talking with some of my friends off camera this past weekend, and I was looking at Chicago specifically, and I said, this is a team that just really badly, in my opinion, needs to move up in the lottery. They really need the lottery luck, and they need it badly. They've been stuck in the middle. They've been losing a little bit more after being aggressive as sellers at the trade deadline here in 2026, which has been a beneficial move for them, in my opinion, for their long-term outlook. But if they don't move up this year, it's just a lost opportunity, and it's going to feel really, really crappy for them, honestly, if they don't get a top 4 pick, because a pick here in the top 4, especially the top 3, could really change this franchise. Pick 4, a little bit less valuable, in my opinion, than the top 3, even though a lot of people still love this guy as a prospect. I understand why. But 4th overall, I have the Chicago Bulls selecting forward Caleb Wilson out of UNC. Now, unfortunately, we did not get to see this guy in March Madness this year, with brackets out now. A lot of fun excitement on the way here in this March Madness mock draft. Caleb Wilson specifically is a guy who he's not going to get to showcase himself any further this season because of that injury, but I do think the overall body of work has cemented him as a top 4 pick in this draft very, very safely. And I think if you look at his actual production too, there's a lot of stuff to fall in love with. The high steal rate, the high block rate, the incredibly high rebounding rate, where he's been incredibly productive for UNC on the glass, both a little bit offensively, but then especially on the defensive end of the floor. There's a lot of synergy between Wilson and a guy like Henry Vesar, who has been really tremendous for UNC as well this season. Those two guys have been a match made in heaven. And listen, while Chicago, they did trade Nikola Vucevic, the front court right now is kind of a big question mark as it is. Caleb Wilson could be a very easy addition into this offense, especially as a fit off of Josh Giddey, someone who throws a lot of high leverage passes. He's very turnover prone, but it's because he's throwing risky passes that'll either lead to a turnover or a dunk at the rim. Those rim assists are extremely valuable. I think a guy like Caleb Wilson is going to be able to benefit greatly off of a guy who's willing to be a daring passer in a way that Josh Giddey is. And if you look at his numbers this season, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. First of all, 41% of his 2-pointers were assisted this year. That's really right around the middle of all of college basketball. So it showcases the fact that he's able to create a little bit for himself off the bounce, some pull-up jumpers. Obviously, you see him work in that mid-post area quite a bit, but then there's also some success as a cutter, his ability to function off of that mid-post passing from Henry Vesar, and a few of the other UNC Tar Heels there as well that have done a decent job setting him up this year, like Trimble, for example. Now, the question, and it really stems around the three-point shot as a whole, he only made 7 3-pointers this year, and 6 of them came off of assists. There's really no unassisted three-point volume to talk about. He made 1 unassisted three-pointer this year. And if you're looking at a guy who's going to be a two-way star in the league, which is what I've consistently heard with people putting him number 1, number 2, number 3 on their big board over guys like Cam Boozer, over AJ Dybantsa, over Darryn Peterson, I'm sorry, but if you're taking that kind of bet on a player, he needs to be able to create for himself at a much higher rate. And then he needs to be not a god-awful three-point shooter relative to the other players at the very top of this draft. Even Dybantsa, whose three-point attempt rate is low, only made 34% of his threes this season at this point. His three-point shooting looks like a godsend in comparison to Caleb Wilson. So, like, again, it's not the same situation as when the Bulls drafted Patrick Williams 4th overall. But I think we have to temper our expectations of what Caleb Wilson is going to look like on the basketball. Are there a lot of tools and traits for him to develop into and grow into as a player? Definitely. But I feel like there's a lot of misplaced excitement about his upside based on his physical tools and traits where, yes, he catches some unbelievable lobs. He's got some really great hand-eye coordination. He's extremely balanced. He makes some really wow plays that you're not expecting while watching the games. I totally understand it. But at the same time, you're really relying on outlier development. And I know a lot of people will say, well, most stars in the league are outlier development. I completely understand. But there's a difference between understanding that that can happen and then banking on that to happen. And if you're putting Caleb Wilson over the other top 3 guys in this draft, that's really what you're banking on at this point in time, in my opinion. Chicago gets a really great player here right now. I don't want to be too pessimistic on Caleb. He's a very, very good prospect. I'm very excited about him. I do think he's an impactful winning player. UNC would not be the team they are this year without him, definitively. But he's not just overnight going to completely reshape this Bulls franchise either. And I think that's important to distinguish here in these mock drafts. 5th overall, the Los Angeles Clippers. This is the best case scenario for them. Remember that pick they got for Ivica Zubac from Indiana is top 4 protected. So landing 5th overall here is a real prime opportunity for the Clippers. And I went back and forth a lot, right? They acquired Darius Garland. They acquired Bennedict Mathurin. Those two guys are going to be probable core pillars for this team moving forward post the Kawhi Leonard era at some point in time. So how do they use those two players while also navigating this pick, especially in what is probably going to be a very guard-heavy portion of this mock draft between picks 5 through 10? And this is why Indiana was willing to make this bet. They understood which prospects would not be available for them at pick 5 and below. And they really took the bet that, hey, maybe we still get a top 4 pick and feel really happy. Or worst case, we would trade pick 5 anyway for a starting center. Let's go get Ivica Zubac right now. The Clippers here at this spot, though, they're gonna swing for the fences in this mock draft. 5th overall, I have them selecting guard Darius Acuff Jr. out of Arkansas. And the word that I just keep coming back to describe Darius Acuff is dynamite. He has been explosive and awesome this year for the Razorbacks. He's in the running for National Player of the Year for good reason. Leads the SEC in scoring, averaging over 6 assists a game as well. He was brilliant in the SEC Conference Championship game, where he posted over 30 points and 10 assists. And was just brilliant. Completely outshined Tyler Tanner in that game against Vanderbilt, en route to an Arkansas SEC championship win. And Acuff and the Razorbacks have been extremely fun to watch. He's been the engine that has made them run. One thing that stands out to me specifically is his ability to get out in transition and push ahead and go. He does a good job making himself available as an outlet guy to receive those outlet passes and then push. Now, I would love to see him get up the floor a little bit more, and I think especially landing in the NBA, when there's more grab and go talent, if a big forward or wing grabs the basketball like Kawhi Leonard or Bennedict Mathurin, they can push in transition. I would love to see Acuff make himself available as a catch and shoot guy in transition. He doesn't do that right now for Arkansas, and understandably so, but that will be a small adjustment for him. Really the bet here, and listen, his defensive numbers are not good. His defensive impact is very poor, but the offensive numbers are so good that it's extremely difficult to bet against a player like this because of his ability to dribble, pass, and shoot. He's been awesome off the ball, gets on the ball very quickly. He's very good off of dribble handoffs, very effective in pistol action. And he, I think, is very decisive with his movement as well when he's off the ball to go get it back. And then he has that kind of big game mentality to him too, where he hits big pull-up shots at the end of games, hit some unbelievable shots in the SEC tournament. He was just brilliant all SEC tournament long. And if you look at his field goal percentage by region this year, it's, I mean, just stellar. Shooting over 41% from above the break, shooting 53% this season from the corners, albeit on low volume, just 32 total three-point attempts. Again, a majority of his time on the ball is going to be around the top of the key, running middle ball screens, high ball screens. But then the paint volume's not bad either. 90 shots in the paint, non-rim attempts, shooting over 44% in that area of the floor, and then shooting 67% at the rim this season, 89 of 133, which is very, very good as well. 38.5% on pull-up twos or mid-range twos this year. And listen, while I would love to see a little bit more escalation of that three-point attempt rate, I'd like to see some of those pull-up twos turn into pull-up threes. I think there's a lot to work with here in this process. The Clippers, the fit with between Acuff and Garland, I think would be problematic to say the least. But this is like a golden ticket opportunity for the Clippers where they might not have a pick this high for the next 4 or 5 years. So if they're going to have a pick here in this range, maybe they swing for the guy that they think has the highest upside. And with Darius Acuff's play this year, especially as of late in the SEC tourney, you can definitely understand the rationale for taking a big swing like this at this spot of the mock draft. Pick 6, the Sacramento Kings here now. They're a team that really badly needs to hit on this pick. 6th overall, fell down a few spots in this lottery simulation, but I have them going with guard Kingston Flemings out of Houston. And I think Kingston Flemings, first of all, slides a spot lower in this mock draft than he has been in most of my other mock drafts this year, where he's been typically finding himself around that 5th overall pick. He goes 6th here to Sacramento. I think he could be a very calming long-term force for them going forward. Now, the Kings' MO lately has been draft guards and then trade them prematurely. They did so with Davion Mitchell. They did so with Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox forced their hands and requested a trade himself. They need to draft, develop, and be patient. They should not be looking for Kingston Flemings to be an all-star by year 2 of his NBA career. By year 4, 5, or 6 of his career, that's when he could possibly be looking at an NBA All-Star because he creates a lot for himself off the bounce. He's been highly, highly productive this year for Houston, leading them in scoring. They did come up short in the Big 12 tournament, and after the game, he actually took a lot of accountability, for that, and it makes you believe that this guy's got a chip on his shoulder, that he holds himself accountable, and that there's going to be moments in his career where he demands greatness from himself. And when he doesn't do such, he wants to step up and perform better in the future. And I think there's a lot of little personality things that go into the draft, and from the outside perspective for fans, you know, they're not in the buildings. They don't get to see these guys. They don't get to interact with them, know who they are as people. I think there's a lot of little nuances and details that do end up swinging teams and franchises certain ways leading up to the draft, after meeting these players, after building relationships, connections with them. That stuff all does matter. And I wanted to point specifically at the assisted rate for Kingston Flemings. A guy who creates a lot for himself, especially out of the middle of the floor, off the dribble, a lot of two-point volume on pull-up jump shots, very creative, getting to his step back in those areas too. And again, while he struggled in the Big 12 championship game for Houston, they came up short to Arizona. There was still, the process was very good even when he was missing shots, in my opinion. Only 17% of his two-pointers this year were assisted. Gives a lot of indication as to what kind of on-ball talent he is from a creation standpoint. And then only 60% of his threes were assisted this year, which was ranking in the 6th percentile. So one of the fewest in the entire country from a percentage assisted standpoint. So really brilliant stuff from Flemings off the dribble this year, creating for himself and then creating for others as well. Now, I don't think he's an A+ playmaker. I would probably put him around a B to B+ playmaker right now. But with how young he is and how talented he's been and how active he's been defensively, this can be a build-around face of the franchise type of guy down the road for the Sacramento Kings. Pick number 7, the Brooklyn Nets on the clock. Obviously, they had 5 first-round picks in 2025, and it's going to be a little complicated here if they end up with pick number 7, because you might be overdrafting at specific positions based on what they did a year ago. But 7th overall, I have the Brooklyn Nets here selecting guard Mikel Brown Jr. out of Louisville. The season did not start the way that MBJ wanted it to, but the year kind of progressed in a favorable fashion for him, where he started to become more impactful in the stocks department, where he started to become more impactful in the shots made department. And all of that kind of lends itself to his scoring talent and what we've seen from him in the prior areas leading up to his college basketball career. I'm talking about playing for Team USA. I'm talking about high school numbers. And this guy can really shoot the basketball, and that's going to be the main calling card for him. If you look at his three-point attempt rate specifically, he ranked nearly in the 80th percentile pretty much 6 out of every 10 shots he took was a three-pointer this year, which is incredible. And he still had a very good free throw attempt rate too. 45% free throw attempt rate, which is very, very good. Gets to the line a decent amount. His usage was, as you would have expected, very high for Louisville this season. And he was very productive from the free throw line as well. Now, I think the biggest concern is about that two-point scoring, which is that first green bar you're seeing on your screen right now. Shot just a little bit over 50% on two-pointers this season prior to the NCAA tournament. So that ranked in just the 49th percentile across college basketball at the Division I level this year. The steal percentage is pretty good, 2.5%, nearly 75th percentile there. But the block rate obviously is not great. So even though he does offer some positional size, standing around 6'5"-ish, we'll see what the actual measurements actually say. It's hard to fully trust all of the measurements that are out on college websites right now. But he's a guy that, with positional size, like, you could look at this as a creator for Brooklyn going forward. And yes, they did take Yegor Dioman, top 10 last year. I said it all last cycle that he wasn't really a point guard. I think we've seen that this season with his inefficiencies as a two-point scorer. But if Brooklyn's trying to three-point attempt rate max, which is what it looks like they're trying to do to a certain extent for Jordy Fernandez, Mikel Brown Jr. can definitely be an additive piece into that kind of formula. The Utah Jazz at pick number 8. This was the lowest they could possibly fall while still retaining their draft pick this year. So what a godsend it is for Utah to still have this selection, even with some other shenanigans going on in the lottery with Dallas and Chicago jumping up. Scary times, but Utah keeps their pick here in this mock draft. In 8th overall, I have them selecting guard Brayden Burries from Arizona. This is the biggest mover in this week's mock draft. From my previous mock to now, he has moved up significantly. And his end-of-season play has been very, very strong, including that Big 12 championship game, where even though he started very slow in that one against Houston, actually began the game with 2 air balls, he was able to kind of find his footing and get a rhythm going, and a lot of it stemmed off of his ability to find success in a variety of different play styles, whether that's moving off the ball as a relocation shooter, driving and cutting, and finding ways to get 2 feet into the paint, creating for others a little bit, being selfless on and off the basketball. And I think one of the things that really sold me on this pick for him, 8th overall for Utah, was that relocation shooting and then the dynamism between play styles for Burries and his positional flexibility that he would offer to Utah, who obviously, I think there's a lot of belief in the building there internally that Keontae George is going to be a key part of their future. He's had a tremendous season this year. And then obviously the trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. You're really looking at a guy who can be a wing a majority of the time while also still offering some on-ball functionality. And I thought Brayden Burries checked a lot of those boxes compared to some of the other guards in this draft class around the top 10. Because for Utah, and especially under Will Hardy, you need to have movement skills. You need to be able to function off the ball. You need to be less reliant for ball screens and be able to create yourself off the bounce, win in isolation a little bit, attack closeouts, drive and kick, do all of these other things. And I thought Brayden Burries checked those boxes a little bit better than some other guys. And this is the type of player I could see Utah falling in love with because of his functionality in their offensive style and the versatility that he could bring from a play style standpoint. And I think when you look at his numbers this year, especially with where he shot the ball, he hasn't shot the ball well from the corner, which is actually a little surprising, especially given his priors. I kind of thought he would just have a dynamite season from the corner. It hasn't happened this year. But the above the break volume is very good. 115 above the break threes attempted this season, making almost 40% of them. Very, very good in the mid-range, almost 50% on mid-range twos on, albeit somewhat low volume, just about 1 attempt a game, maybe a little bit more, about 1.5 attempts a game this season. But then he's really good at the rim, almost 70% at the rim this season on quality volume, 124 rim attempts. And that's around a lot of other size that Arizona's got on the floor for Tommy Lloyd. You talk about Mo Krivas. Obviously, there's a lot of other names there too that Arizona's got some big bodies on the floor, and they face a lot of really good team defenses in the Big 12, one of the stronger conferences in all of college basketball, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And Burries is a guy that has found a lot of success as a freshman, and he's been a steady riser from where he was at the beginning of the season to where he is now. 8th is probably the highest you'll see him go in mock drafts. I would be shocked if he ends up being a top 6 or 7 pick in the draft. But 8th overall is not bad at all, and I think is a very good fit actually with Utah as well moving forward. Pick number 9, the Memphis Grizzlies here now. this is a dire team in terms of moving up in the lottery. I was talking with my friends, like I said earlier, about Chicago, their need to move up in the lottery. Memphis is another team that, to me, just screams, hey, we need this pick badly. They made some really smart decisions. I thought trading Desmond Bane was very creative. Trading Jaren Jackson Jr., getting out of his long-term salary was a good move for them as well. But they don't have a lot of premium draft capital. They do have a lot of draft capital, period. But they're going to be somewhat reliant in the next couple of years on their own picks turning into high picks and turning into good young players. So it would be very, very advantageous for them if their own pick moves up into the top 4 this year. And even though they've been losing, their draft seeding hasn't really elevated a lot because of all the tanking in the NBA right now and all of the teams intentionally not putting their best foot forward. But 9th overall, the Memphis Grizzlies here select guard Keaton Wagler out of Illinois. And in a lot of the ways that I described Darius Acuff, Keaton Wagler has been a flamethrower. A little bit less playmaking talent than Acuff, and I think there are some downsides to Wagler as an on-ball player in the NBA, especially from his isolation standpoint. I think he's a little bit more screen reliant. We talked about that a lot last year with Kasparas Jakubonis for Illinois, funny enough. I think there's some truth to that for Keaton Wagler as well this year. But boy, has he been awesome as a shot maker. Just unbelievably brilliant off the dribble. And I wanted to point to some of my questions, actually, and the reason why, for people who are wondering about the Jazz, why didn't I mock Wagler to Utah? If you look at his assisted rate, he doesn't get assisted almost ever. Only 11% of his twos this year have been assisted, and only 48% of his three-pointers made this year have been assisted, which is just the 3rd percentile in the entire nation. So he's been a very difficult shot maker, a lot of it off the bounce, a lot of it from a self-creation standpoint, and there's a lot of positives from that as well, because you can look at it and say, okay, this guy's been a tough shot maker. He's been able to create for himself consistently at the college game. That's all great stuff. And for Memphis, I feel like hey, that's what they want. That's what they need now. The future of Ja Morant's uncertain in Memphis, right? They do have Ty Jerome. They have some quality guard play even outside of Ja Morant. But this is kind of looking like a total facelift for Memphis, where they can maybe take a stab on a guy who's going to be that go-to scoring punch possibly, whereas Utah is looking for kind of some of those finishing touches. And how do they get guys that fit around Keontae George and Lauri Markkanen? What else do they need? And Keaton Wagler just, to me, didn't completely fill that answer. And I think specifically his ability to score on the ball gives some creation elements next to Zach Edey that would be really dynamic and fun to work with. Now, there's not a lot of elite pull-up volume in the mid-range area, and he hasn't been a super efficient long two-point shooter. It's just really a lot of three-point volume, and that's good, and it's also bad because it makes you question, okay, well, is this sample size, his 30-ish games for Illinois, does that warrant a top 10 pick because he's on a hot shooting streak right now? And this is a guy coming into the year almost nobody had in their first-round mocks. This is a player that really not until the midpoint of the season was getting talked about as a lottery prospect, and now it almost feels like a certainty that he will go lottery, and I definitely understand why. He's been absolutely awesome this year for Illinois, so I'm not trying to discredit him, but when you're taking someone who's a shooter in the draft who pretty much creates all of his own stuff off the bounce, I do have concerns about the fact that there's not a lot of good two-point volume in there, and that his shot diet has been very three-point reliant, and our sample size is not very big on that three-point volume. So that's where the questions come to me. Now, I think Memphis is the team that would be willing to take that kind of stab here. He slides a little bit. A lot of other mocks, he's been going 7th or 8th overall. He falls all the way down to 9th here in this mock, but I definitely think the team fit is sensible with the destination and landing spot here for Wagler at number 9. Pick number 10, the Milwaukee Bucks here now. This is, remember, the worst of New Orleans and Milwaukee because of that swap favorable that Atlanta now owns from the Pelicans. But 10th overall, I have the Bucks selecting guard Labaron Philon out of Alabama. This guy has one of the best year-to-year progressions we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years in the draft, with a freshman guy coming back as a sophomore returner for the same program. And without Mark Sears, a lot of the weight of Nate Oates' offense fell on the shoulders of Labaron Philon, and he has been able to uphold that offensive efficiency and actually improve upon it from his freshman to sophomore campaign with more responsibility. He has done a tremendous job. Last year, his usage was under 21%. This year, it's above 30%. Last year, his rim attempts, including the tournament and everything throughout the season, stood at 121. This year, before the SEC tournament, he has taken over 130 shots at the rim, and his field goal percentage has improved drastically as well. So with the ball in his hands more and an upscaled volume and usage, not every player is built to handle that. Labaron Philon not only has handled that improvement in terms of his responsibility, but he's actually improved his efficiency and success on the ball as well. And it's been incredibly impressive to see for Alabama, which is a very pro-styled offense. They play with good pace and spacing. And I still think Philon, who does such a great job getting paint touches, you get him into the NBA, and who knows what the future is going to look like for the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't want to base this pick on the future of Giannis one way or another, but the Bucks need guys who are dynamic and can create off the bounce. Labaron Philon can do that and do that at a high level. He's going to be one of the best drive and kick guys in the NBA pretty much immediately upon arrival, in my opinion. This guy is very quick off the bounce, decisive in his dribbles, gets where he wants to go and does it quickly. He's done a very nice job picking his spots as a scorer this year and as a creator. And listen, there's been a little bit of defensive slippage from a year ago, but I think once you get this guy in the NBA, he's going to be able to make enough plays defensively to at least fill in that defensive playmaking role as a guard, where he's not going to be a stopper. He's probably not going to defend the other team's best player night to night, but he's going to be able to get in the passing lane a little bit, be a tad bit disruptive. And I think if you're betting on the offensive talent, which is very, very impressive, you're going to see him be a competent defender as well in the NBA. And I think for Milwaukee, whether Giannis is around or not, they need more dynamism. They need more guys who can create off the bounce consistently. And Labaron Philon checks all of those boxes for the Bucks moving forward. The Portland Trailblazers at pick number 11. Remember, this pick is lottery protected, so depending on how their playoff push at the end of the year goes, maybe we'd be talking about this as a Chicago Bulls asset at pick 15. But 11th overall, I have the Blazers here selecting big man Hannes Steinbach out of Washington. He has been tremendous for the Huskies all year, a consistent double-double machine, putting up big PRA stats, especially points and rebounds out of the points, rebounds, and assist bucket. Very, very productive this year for UW. And I think if you're looking at a guy who, staying in that Pacific Northwest area, he would be a fun fit next to Donovan Clingan, or when Donovan Clingan's off the floor. Now, I know that last year they took Hansen Yang, 16th overall. They still have that investment there in the front court, but I think more size the better. In the NBA right now, it's a size league. It always has been. It will always be a size league. And Portland, getting a skilled big like Hannes Steinbach is going to check a lot of boxes. And one thing that he does just tremendously well that you cannot overlook, and honestly gets completely devalued this time of the year, is he rebounds the basketball. He ranks in the 98th percentile in offensive rebound rate, and he ranks in the 99th percentile in defensive rebound rate with a gaudy 25.1% defensive rebounding rate, which is just incredible. He doesn't foul a ton either. He just ranks in the 76th percentile in personal fouls per 40 minutes, which is very good. And listen, he's not going to get touted as this very good defender, but his block rate and steal rate are actually decently impressive. Ranks in the 54th percentile for defensive steal rate as an individual this season, which as a big man I think is pretty solid. And then his 4% block rate isn't anything to say, oh, that's going to shape our defense, but it points to his size being valuable. And if you look at a guy like Mo Wagner, for example, for Orlando, who's been kind of a spark plug every time he checks in offensively, I think Hannes Steinbach kind of checks that same kind of role in the NBA, where even if he's not a go-to offensive player for you, he can be a dynamic cutter, an offensive rebounder. He's going to create second chance opportunities for you. He'll help you box out, secure defensive rebounds. And with how good of a defensive unit Portland is putting together, how young this team is, if they can get a guy who can consistently create second chance opportunities and help you close out possessions by rebounding on the defensive end of the floor, it's going to help elevate this team another step forward. And I think that's what Portland, especially at 11, if you can just take small steps forward year after year, it's not hard to become a quality playoff team with some internal development, the right moves on the margins. I thought they did a nice job picking up Drew Holiday this past year, and they still have that big swing ticket at some point with all those Bucks picks, all of their assets to maybe go out there and make a huge improvement at some point in time as well. But they're in a great spot, and I think Steinbach could be a nice addition for them at number 11. Pick 12, the Golden State Warriors, who have been on a little bit of a recent slide as of late. They're here now at this spot in the first round, and I think pick 12 is going to be a fascinating decision point for them. A lot of people are maybe a little bit lower on this guy than I am, but 12th overall, I have the Golden State Warriors selecting center Patrick Ngongba II out of Duke. Very, very skilled big man, someone who has been just an absolute beast for Duke this season. Now, he did miss the ACC tournament with his injury, but we're hoping to see him in March Madness. We're hoping to see him during the NCAA tournament because this guy is really, really important for Duke offensively and defensively. I think his two-way impact cannot be overstated for them because of his playmaking off the top of the key. He's a DHO hub that can do a lot of different things, make reads off of split action. It's hard to find processors like that, and from his freshman to sophomore season, I think we've seen some real development strides for him in that area. And then he's also just, I think, really evolved as a defensive player, providing impact at the rim. Block rate's very, very good this season. And if you look at his team impact this year, like, it's been unbelievable. With him on the floor, Duke is outscoring other teams by 33 points per 100 possessions. That's in the 100th percentile across the nation. So when he's on the court, Duke outperforms everybody better than anyone else, basically. The offensive rating is very good. Now, Duke, especially with John Shire and his play calling and offensive creativity, they're not reliant on Ngongba, and because of that, the offense doesn't actually perform better with him on the court, but the defense drastically does. They are 9 points worse per 100 possessions without him on the floor defensively. It's a testament to his size, his shot blocking. They play a little bit faster with him on the floor, and then their effective field goal rate is actually a little bit better with him on the court too. Now, they do take more threes with Ngongba off the floor. That's part of the overall offensive rating, and maybe some of the numbers maybe telling a little bit of a lie there as well, just given the sample size and volume and everything. But I think for Golden State, you're looking at a team that next year is kind of the year for them, right? You're going to have Kristaps Porzingis hopefully back. Jimmy Butler should come back. Steph Curry will hopefully be healthy for a full season. And we're in the twilight of Steph's career. What does this team need? They need more size, especially for when Porzingis does miss games. You need a big man who can play make. And I think a lot about Andrew Bogut, and you're probably not expecting to hear me talk about Andrew Bogut in a 2026 NBA mock draft. But Andrew Bogut, there was such a chemistry and synergy between him and Steph, between him and Clay. They're in those early, 2013 or 2014, 2015 Warriors teams that were just like so fun to watch. The little dump off passes between his legs, the DHO handoffs off the top of the key. That's the stuff that Ngongba can bring to Golden State. I think if Steve Kerr is back as head coach, this is a guy who fits the system extremely well, can bring a defensive impact. The Warriors need size. They need it badly. Porzingis was at least in a way to address that, but the consistency and availability is going to be that big question. Getting another big man in the building is extremely smart. Patrick Ngongba, he checks those boxes. He does a lot of really good two-way stuff for a team from a playmaking hub standpoint, a rim finishing standpoint, and then defensively, his activity level, his hands, athleticism, and then his ability to contest shots around the rim and block shots. Even though he fouls at a pretty good rate, there's going to be a lot of great stuff he can provide to Golden State, and I think he's a really valuable asset for them if they can pick him up at number 12. The Charlotte Hornets here at number 13. One of the most difficult things about mock drafts is remembering that I'm projecting what teams will do, not necessarily what I would do. And there's a lot of great players in this draft. 13th overall, I do have the Charlotte Hornets selecting forward Nate Ament out of Tennessee. Ament's got a lot of skills. Remember, he came in as a top 5 recruit in this recruiting cycle. The season hasn't necessarily gone the way that you would want. And his final SEC tournament game kind of highlighted that, where he had a very abysmal shooting night. The inconsistencies as a shot maker this year just raise a lot of red flags for me, especially when you look at where his volume is coming from in his shot diet specifically, because he's shooting a lot of long twos. He's playing out of the mid post way too frequently. For a team like Charlotte, one of the reasons why this fit maybe is sensible, Charles Lee is going to help this team shoot a ton of threes with his system, scheme identity, the way that they play, the actions that they run. That's what Nate Ament needs. He needs to land in a destination where they're going to say, hey, buddy, no more 17-footers. Get behind that three-point line, spot up, catch and shoot. And I think that's the skill set that he's going to hopefully be able to grow into going forward. Remember, these guys are 19 years old. Just like I talked about, sometimes it's hard to trust that three-point volume and that sample size. That can also be true when a guy doesn't shoot it well, and you were projecting him to from his priors, from his high school tape and numbers and film. And Nate Ament, I thought, was going to have a better shooting season than he has had. And I think, maybe fitting into a system in Charlotte rather than being the guy like he is for Tennessee is going to be a really good adaptation for his success. I do want to point to one thing. I thought he's done decently well this year. Now, it is not great. I'm trying to sell the product here a little bit. But Nate Ament, his defensive numbers are not bad, right? He doesn't foul a ton per 40 minutes. His personal foul efficiency rate's pretty solid. Defensive rebounds at a decent clip, 17% D rebound rate, which is pretty solid. And then a near 4.5% stock rate with 2.3% block rate, 2.1% steal rate. Again, it's not incredible. It's not like oh my gosh, this is a can't miss defensive prospect, but he's at least somewhat active defensively. He's tall, long. He's very slight and skinny yet. He's going to have to build up his muscle and strength a little bit, especially his core strength. I think he's going to have to get better. But for Charlotte specifically here, you're looking at a guy who I think could be a really solid pickup for them long term, especially when you look at their expiring contracts and guys who are going to become expiring contracts next year. Grant Williams, Josh Green. You're looking at replacing forwards around LaMelo, Khan, Brandon Miller, and Moussa Diabate, Miles Bridges, of course. So Nate Ament's a guy who I think can fit into the system, fit into the building, and with some adjustments to his play style and shot diet, could become an additive piece down the road. The Oklahoma City Thunder here have picks 14 and 15 in this mock draft. This one at 14 comes from the ever-tanking Philadelphia 76ers. This pick is once again top 4 protected. We'll see what happens in the lottery and how much Philadelphia tanks down the stretch of the year, but it has been a rough turning of events after trading away Jared McCain. 14th overall, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder selecting center Jayden Quaintance out of Kentucky. This guy has played very little this season for Kentucky. We'll see if we get to see him much in the NCAA tournament or not. But coming out of Arizona State, he was one of the most sought-after transfers as a 17-year-old in college basketball for the Sun Devils. He was unbelievably productive and impactful defensively, and that's what I want to focus on here. This is his numbers from last college season for Arizona State. With him on the floor, Arizona State had a defensive rating of 102.5, and without him on the court, it fell all the way to 119.5. That was a 99th percentile difference. And again, he was doing that as a 17-year-old in college basketball. He was not draft eligible last year. And if he would have been, he would have probably been a top 10 or 12 pick at the very least in the 2025 draft. Now, the torn ACL, the injuries, it does raise some questions. But a team like Oklahoma City, who has been patient with the Nikola Topic situation, obviously very happy to see that he's been able to get on the floor and he's healthy. They drafted him off a torn ACL coming out of Europe. And they were patient with him, right? Could they do something like that again here, taking a player in Quaintance who, coming into the year, was a projected top 5, top 6 pick in this year's draft? This could be an absolute home run for them. Now, I know they took Thomas Sorber in the teens last year, but they have questions about the long-term center play. Will they be able to keep Isaiah Hartenstein long-term? Questions about his contract, and are they going to be able to keep everybody because of the new big contract extensions for Holmgren and J-Dub? There's going to be some questions, right? Jalen Williams is a quality player, but you can never have enough size in the NBA. Jayden Quaintance, an elite defender, and specifically if you look at the block rate for Arizona State when he was on the floor, it ballooned all the way up to 14.7%, which is just ridiculous from the 9% mark that they had with him off the court. He is one of the most impactful individual defenders in this entire draft. I know we haven't really gotten to see him on the court this year healthy at all, but trust me, the film from last year was so good that he could still very well warrant a lottery selection in this year's draft because a team like OKC, who's very smart, they trust the process, they've been watching these guys for years and years like I have, they know what they have in a guy like Jayden Quaintance. If he's available to them, they take that stab on him here at number 14 without putting pressure on him to be available even next season if he's not ready to go quite yet. Pick 15, staying on the Oklahoma City Thunder like I talked about. This pick comes from the Los Angeles Clippers, which is the most favorable of their own, Houston's and the Clippers pick. And I have them selecting forward Morez Johnson out of Michigan. This is another defensive-minded pick, and it's all about the versatility that OKC could play with around Chet Holmgren. If you go out and draft a guy like Jayden Quaintance, you're seeing Holmgren kind of stick in that power forward slot where he's been playing the last couple of years. If you draft a guy like Morez Johnson, it allows Holmgren to maybe be the 5 more traditionally, but you can still space the floor off of him. Morez Johnson's been very, very successful at the rim. He's a very strong physical player, with some really great defensive impact numbers this year for Michigan. When he's been on the floor, the Wolverines have just been dominant this season. They did come up short in the Big Ten championship game, unfortunately for Wolverines fans, against Purdue. But Morez Johnson's been awesome. He's dabbled in his three-point shot a little bit. Now, you might say, okay, well, this is too much in the front court for OKC. They drafted Sorba last year. You give them Jayden Quaintance, Morez Johnson. It almost feels like, hey, the rich got too rich here now. But at the same time, they also traded for Jared McCain. I don't think they need a guard. They have Isaiah Joe, they have McCain, they have AJ Mitchell, Shea, J-Dub. Like, they got Aaron Wade. This team is loaded. Top to bottom, 1 through 15. It's the best team maybe in NBA history, honestly, from like an actual sheer roster standpoint in terms of depth of talent and just how good this team is. It's ridiculous. They get even better here in this draft, walking away with both Jayden Quaintance and Morez Johnson. While I was putting this mock draft together, I was like sitting there shaking my head like, man, if this happens, there's going to be a little bit of a riot and uprising from these other 29 teams about how OKC was able to get not one but two awesome defensive players in this draft class. And if you look at his numbers this year too, like just stellar across the board, just unbelievable with his rebounding numbers, block numbers. You can just tell like a lot of these bars are extremely high because he ranks very, very well percentile-wise across so many different areas. He, if you want to look at a knock on him, he fouls a little bit too much. But again, for OKC, with how deep they are, you're not even worried about foul trouble, really, for a backup big like Morez Johnson. The San Antonio Spurs here at number 16, probably a little disappointed to see both Quaintance and Morez Johnson off the board here, back-to-back right in front of them. But 16th overall, I do have San Antonio here, and I think Spurs fans are going to really like this. I have them selecting forward Yaxel Lendeborg from Michigan. So we're going back-to-back Wolverines here. First Morez Johnson to OKC, and now Yaxel to the San Antonio Spurs. And I think if you're looking at the future of the Spurs, you're looking for forwards who can do a little bit of everything. And those are hard to find and hard to come by, but there's a reason Yaxel Lendeborg is in the running for National Player of the Year at the college level. It's because he's very, very good at a lot of different things. He's been just incredible this year. The all-in-one metrics really suggest it, where he ranks in the 100th percentile this season in RAP-M. At 11.8, and also the 100th percentile in offensive RAP-M at 7.0. But the defensive numbers are very good too. He rebounds the ball extremely well. He gets impactful playmaking numbers in terms of steals and blocks. And then offensively, he takes care of the ball as a forward. Very good assist to turnover rate. He scores the ball. And one of the biggest developments has been his three-point shooting. The shot that sent Michigan to the Big Ten championship game, I thought was a really good testament to some of Yaxel Lendeborg's development from a year-over-year perspective. Now, some of the trade-offs here, you are drafting a guy who's 23 years old at pick number 16. Typically, the track record for drafting some of these older prospects, like a guy like Yaxel Lendeborg, hasn't been great on return. You think about the names like Chris Duarte and Ochai Agbaji, but I don't want to let those other players completely dictate how we feel about Yaxel. He's been awesome. Last year he was great for UAB. This year he's been dominant for Michigan. He, remember, transferred up. He transferred into a power conference in the Big Ten, and he's improved in the process. So I think it would be kind of short-sighted to say, oh, he's not going to get any better going to the NBA. He literally got better from last year to this year, and it's possible he just keeps improving. And it's not like the Spurs need him to be a superstar. They need him to be a productive contributor in a variety of areas, and that's exactly what he's going to be able to do for San Antonio around Wemby, around that awesome backcourt that they have of Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, and De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs are in a great, great position, and 16th overall, selecting Yaxel Lendeborg kind of addresses one of their positional needs long-term. Pick 17, the Miami Heat here on the clock, and Miami, well, first of all, they have the second highest scorer in NBA history in a single game in Bam Adebayo. I still cannot believe that happened. What a crazy, crazy week it's been in the NBA. But 17th overall, I have the Miami Heat selecting forward Dailyn Swain out of Texas. One of the most productive and efficient isolation scorers this entire college basketball season. Now, Texas hasn't had the team success that you would maybe love to see for a prospect like Dailyn Swain, who's been tasked with so much responsibility for their offense. But he himself has been impactful and productive. And I don't want to, this goes for pretty much every draft prospect ever, but it's so difficult to carry a program at the Division I level. So it's not really fair to expect a guy like Dailyn Swain to completely put the program on his back and on his shoulders and just carry them to the promised land night in, night out. But there were stretches of the season where he did. Now, I think, again, the three-point volume and the sample size is going to be the big question. He transferred up to Texas from Xavier this past year, and it's his best three-point shooting season of his career. Now, he shot just 1 of 10 from the corner. Again, the sample size there is whatever. Like, if he made 2 more shots, we'd be saying, oh, okay, 3 of 10, whatever. Like, it's such a small sample size, I kind of want to throw it out. But I also feel that way about the above-the-break threes. Just 72 total above-the-break three-point attempts this year, and it was his highest three-point attempt rate season of his career. It was his best three-point shooting season of his career. So while the volume and percentage actually did tick upward in a pretty drastic fashion from his prior 2 seasons at Xavier, it's also leaving me in a spot where, okay, 72 three-pointers in an entire season from above the break. Can you really bank on that? Is that something that you want to say, oh, well, he developed as a shooter, now I believe he can shoot it super well? Had he missed 2 more threes, that number from 38.9% would be down in the 36% range. And then all of a sudden you're starting to say, oh, the 3-year sample doesn't look very good. And the mid-range sample's not great. Under 40% on mid-range shots this year. Now, what's really tremendous is his rim volume, 155 shots at the rim. And his paint volume, 72 shots in the paint, 56% on those types of looks. His creation skills, his ability to beat guys off the bounce, all of that stuff's really good. So I don't want to come across pessimistic because I am very excited about Dailyn Swain as a player, and I think he would fit tremendously in Miami, specifically with the lack of ball screens. And if Erik Spoelstra maintains that system moving forward, I think Swain could be a really good fit into their offensive system. The question for me about Swain is, does the three-point shot develop? Does it hold? Is this year a misnomer? Is this a outlier? Or is this a trend in the right direction for who he could possibly be transitioning to the NBA? That's a hard question to answer. His role in the league will be easier than it is right now, but that'll also be an adjustment for him. So I think there's a lot to really break down in Dailyn Swain. Stay tuned for one of my prospect breakdowns on him when I get to him, probably in the next couple weeks or so. I'm very excited for that. He's a very fun prospect to talk about. Very, very talented, and Miami gets a good player here at number 17. Pick 18, the Toronto Raptors. This team was heavily listed in the center market at the trade deadline. Now, they didn't make a huge splash, so could they use pick number 18 to address that center spot? 18th overall here, I have them selecting center Henry Versar out of UNC, and this is a guy who I really like as a draft prospect. Extremely productive, extremely impactful. North Carolina's defense completely shatters without him on the floor. His ability to play in drop coverage while staying active around the level but retreating at the right pace to stay in line with the rolling big man, all of that stuff's very good. And then the offensive numbers are great as well, where you look at his ability to shoot the two-point shot, shooting almost 69% on two-pointers this year. He's shooting around 80% at the rim, which is unbelievable. He's got great touch and hands, good finishing, finesse, and power around the rim. And then he's also shooting the three unbelievably well. It's a big development sign for him. Now, again, the volume is not great, but the process is very easy to pick up on. And I talked about it with Caleb Wilson, and I said, oh, well, too many of his three-point shots are assisted. So I might sound like a hypocrite here saying, oh, well, I really like Henry Versar's three-point volume. 95% of it's assisted. There's a huge difference between, for me, banking on Henry Versar as a catch-and-shoot guy compared to Caleb Wilson as a shooter, because if you're banking on Wilson becoming a two-way star at pick number 4 compared to Henry Versar being a trailing big man in delay action at pick 18, Versar's playstyle is a lot more predictable and a lot easier to find those kinds of looks for him consistently in the NBA because of the way that offenses and defenses are shaped and the spacing of the floor that Versar is going to occupy consistently. I think for Darko Rajakovic, Versar's processing, his IQ, his intelligence, his passing talent, and his ability to protect the rim without fouling at an absurd rate is going to be all really additive to what Toronto wants to do defensively and offensively. I think this is a really great fit. This is one of the best fits in the entire draft that you're going to see in this mock here. If Versar ends up in Toronto, the Raptors get a lot better, and I think it's a significant improvement for them going forward. Pick number 19, we're back to the Memphis Grizzlies. Remember, earlier they went with Keaton Wagler at pick number 9. Now at number 19, this is the best of the Suns and Magic picks. I have them here selecting forward Kareem Lopez from the New Zealand Breakers. Getting a player here who is, I think, quite talented. a guy who can create off the bounce a little bit for himself and for others. I think that's really the biggest selling point in his game. It's more playmaking juice. Now, the biggest question for me is that three-point shot diet, and if he's going to be able to uphold his three-point volume and continue building forward like he has for the New Zealand Breakers in his NBL career. He was very productive. I don't want to sell him short. He had one of the best next star seasons ever. And that includes guys like Josh Giddey. That includes guys like LaMelo Ball. He was very productive from a points, rebounds, assist standpoint. The question for me is, what's that impact going to look like in the NBA? Now, Memphis just beginning a multi-year rebuild. If they get a guy like Keaton Wagler who can create off the bounce, if they can get a guy like Kareem Lopez who can attack closeouts, create for others a little bit as a play off the catch type of guy, I think you're building some semblance of talent that could make sense going forward. They already have a lot of young talent. It's going to be interesting to see how Memphis kind of goes about building everything up. They're still missing those top-end players, which is part of what the issue was with them to begin with, around Darryn and Desmond Bane and Ja. They maybe just didn't have that 1A guy to begin with. Right now, they might not have a 2A or even 3A type of player on their roster. They've got some good talent. Jalen Wells is the guy that comes to mind. Obviously, Zach Edey's in the building. They have talent. It's about finding talent that fits together and then that elite talent at some point as well. Another team that would be very, very well positioned if they win that lottery in May. Pick number 20, the Charlotte Hornets here. This is the worst of Phoenix, Washington, Orlando, or Memphis. And 20th overall, I have the Hornets selecting center Chris Sanak Jr. out of Houston. Another guy, I talked about it with Kingston Flemings. Chris Sanak Jr. did not have his best game in the Big 12 championship, but leading up to that Big 12 championship, he was awesome in Big 12 tournament play. Extremely effective, extremely productive, and I felt like his activity levels were through the roof, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing for his career going forward is how active can he be defensively? Can he continue to provide impact by getting in the passing lanes, being an active deterrent at the rim, anchoring defenses, rotating as a shot blocker? Those are going to be kind of the, hey, we need you to do that consistently for us to completely maximize who you are. But the offensive talent is so real. He's shooting over 85% at the rim this year. Now, the volume's not insane, playing around some other inside type of players like JoJo Tugler, for example. But 55 shots at the rim, he's made 47 of them, which is just awesome. The touch range is really good, and only 39 shots in the painted area, non-rim attempts, but over 56% on those looks. And then you're seeing some semblance of a quality jump shot. And for Charlotte specifically here, while I don't think center is like a, oh my gosh, if they don't draft it, they're screwed type of need, it's still a need that I think they could address. Moussa Diabate has been awesome for them, especially on the glass this year. Ryan Kalkbrenner's had some really awesome moments for the Hornets as well. Chris Sanak Jr. gives them a different kind of big man, a big with some perimeter shooting skill who can stretch the floor a little bit. And if you want to completely max out your three-point volume, Sanak Jr. I do think gives you different levels of offensive efficiency in different ways than Diabate does. For example, where Diabate is going to help you in second possession maxing, getting offensive rebounds, kickouts, obviously screen and roll, that kind of volume. Whereas Sanak, he's going to be able to step out behind that three-point line in his NBA career. He's got very good touch, shoots the basketball extremely well, and I think if we can turn some more of that 15 to 18-foot volume he's taken at Houston, 92 mid-range attempts this year, and turn those into more three-pointers, then you're starting to really cook with gas and delay action and pick and pop looks off of LaMelo. There's a lot of different things Sanak's going to be able to do for you offensively because of his touch. And I think for Charlotte, it just gives you a different kind of big man that can be a really additive piece for them long term, even though Diabate and Kalkbrenner have given them good results this year in their center room. Pick 21, the Denver Nuggets here at this spot in the mock draft. I thought this was a really great outcome, not only for the team, but specifically for the prospect. 21st overall, I have the Denver Nuggets selecting forward Koa Pete out of Arizona. Koa Pete has drawn comparisons to Aaron Gordon, and while I think those are a little lofty, I understand, at least from a body frame standpoint, like the physical nature, the athletic tools, there are some similarities, right? Big, broad shoulders, strong, can finish around the rim. Koa Pete playing off of Nikola Jokic, I think, would be a real solution for him. He's been good this season, especially on the defensive end of the floor. He's had 91st percentile type of impact defensively. With him off the floor, Tommy Lloyd's Wildcats are significantly worse, surprisingly. They have some awesome defensive players. It's not just Pete doing all the work, obviously, but I think it's a testament to the value of size, especially in college basketball. Having more big, strong, physical bodies on the floor, the better. It's going to help your defense. It's going to help your rebounding. It's going to help your rim protection. It's going to be able to stymie drives. It's going to be another big body that deters rim attempts. Pete's been additive in a lot of those natures, and I think specifically one of the best positives that he's brought for Arizona as well is kind of that downhill rim force where he gets to the rim a lot, especially in transition. He's a good runner on the floor, gets up and down the court very well, and I think if you're looking to continue installing pace around Nikola Jokic, Pete can be a really nice addition. Aaron Gordon's missed some time the last couple of years with injuries. It's another big physical body to add to the room. And 21st overall, it feels like quality value at the very least for Denver if he falls this far in the actual draft. Pick 22, Atlanta, who got Darren Peterson earlier at pick number 3. Now at 22, I went back and forth. I thought about center. I thought about point guard. I thought about center. I thought about point guard. I landed here with a player who I really, really like. It's not the positional need that the center spot is. I really do think positionally Atlanta needs a big man, but I like the talent. I like the skill fit here schematically for them. So 22nd overall, I have the Atlanta Hawks selecting guard Bennett Sturts out of Iowa. And for Quinn Snyder, I talked about it earlier with his organization offensively and all of the things that he does from a set play standpoint. Who's better to add in than a guy like Bennett Sturts, who's a tremendous processor, extremely smart, high IQ, and he's just really damn good at basketball. If you look at his efficiencies this year, you look at all of his numbers, advanced analytics love him, the general traditional numbers love him. It's because he's really darn good. This guy is just great at basketball. He's probably the best conditioned athlete in this draft. He plays pretty much every single meaningful minute for Iowa. He really never sits. Last year for Drake, he never ever sat on the bench seemingly. And this year, it's been more of the same. And again, this is another guy who transferred up and didn't lose any of that effectiveness. He didn't become less efficient. He's still been an awesome assisted turnover guy with nearly a 3-to-1 assisted turnover rate, which is awesome. His assist rate's through the roof. He creates a lot of what Iowa does offensively. He shoots free throws well. Now, I think if you're looking for things you can nitpick at, he doesn't get to the line as much as some of those top-end guys do. I think he could use a little bit more craft as a scorer. I think he struggles with ball pressure a little bit more than some of the top-end guys. I think Labaron Philon's a little bit more crafty, creative at getting downhill. But Sturts is just an awesome, awesome processor. He's a great shooter. Shoots it well from pretty much every area of the floor. And for Atlanta, not only are you getting a guy who's going to be a reliable scorer shooter, but you're getting a player who's going to help you set up your offense. He's going to be a guy that can run high ball screens, or he can get you into whatever organized set you want to do. And he can push in transition. Now, something I think, again, if you're projecting what he's going to be at the NBA level, there's, I think, a lot of low-hanging fruit to pick up even because Ben McCollum in Iowa, they don't play fast at all. They're actually one of the slower-paced teams in the entire nation. So once Sturts gets into NBA context and gets to realize, hey, I can push in transition, I can attack an advantage instead of just playing 5-on-5 every possession, his offense might even get easier. There's a really good chance Bennett Sturts returns lottery value in this draft just because he's so cerebral and talented and skilled that it almost feels like a no-brainer that he's going to be very good in the NBA. Even if he's never elite, he'll just be good. And Atlanta getting a good player at 22 sounds like an awesome home run for them, especially at the point guard spot. Even though it's not their biggest need, especially after drafting Darren Peterson, it's still a really good addition for their roster. Pick 23, the Detroit Pistons here now. I went back and forth, but one thing Detroit, it seems like they're trying to address every single trade deadline is shooting. So 23rd overall, I have the Detroit Pistons here selecting guard Braylon Mullins out of UConn. I've been kind of back and forth all year on whether or not Braylon Mullins is actually going to declare for the draft or not. I did include him in this mock draft because I still think there's a very good chance that he actually does declare for the draft and stay in the draft this year. I do have some concerns, and it specifically stems around his play style and kind of the one-dimensional nature of it. He is going to be a three-point shooter off the move, and that's really good, and that's what Detroit probably is looking for, which is why I mocked him here at 23 to them. The issue, if you're looking at upside and what this guy can become, he shoots essentially 0 free throws. His free throw rate is one of the lowest in the entire nation. In fact, when he's on the floor, UConn's free throw rate drops by about 13%, which is crazy. And their offense actually isn't better with him on the floor. Their defense is actually a little bit worse with him on the floor. He has not been a super additive player to UConn. Now, that's not necessarily what the stats fully say, right? Your team can be slightly worse with you on the court without you being a negative player. That, I think people miss that a little bit. There's a lot of context. There's a lot of misunderstanding about how substitution patterns work and all of these things. But his numbers don't look like some of the top guys in college basketball because his impact hasn't quite been like that. And the thing is, if you're Detroit, you're drafting for a fit here, and that's what Braylon Mullins is giving to you. But if you want to know why I'm a little skeptical that he's just going to flat out declare for the draft, I could see a large quantity of analytics departments in the NBA saying, yeah, we don't have a first-round grade on this guy, and I totally understand that possible outcome as well. Pick 24, the Philadelphia 76ers here. Obviously, one of the big surprises of the trade deadline was them trading away Jared McCain in what Daryl Morey listed as a sell-high move. Well, this is the pick you got back for him, 24. Hopefully you get a guy as good as Jared McCain. Now, luckily for them, there's a player I do like a lot here for them at this spot. I have them selecting wing Cameron Carr out of Baylor. His impact numbers this year have been through the roof. In fact, Baylor, who had a very down season for themselves, were way better. The Baylor Bears were way better with Cam Carr on the floor than without him on the court. And I think he's got a super NBA-ready role player play style and skill set to kind of morph into the NBA easily. He shot almost 80% at the rim this season, which is unbelievable for a wing. Very good volume too, almost 120 rim attempts this year. Now he did just shoot 34% on paint, non-rim attempts, so the touch is a little questionable in that non-rim area. And then the mid-range shot, not great, but if you're looking at, hey, it's green from the three-point line, it's green right around the rim, that's what role players typically are allowed to shoot in NBA offenses and what teams allow for their role players. Cam Carr is a really, really talented player, and his ability to shoot the ball, especially with range, I'm going to use the cursor here quick. He doesn't just shoot toes on the line. He is shooting several steps behind the three-point line, and a lot of them off the move. He's very, very talented, very creative as a scorer. He can fly off of off-ball screens. And if you're looking to replace some of what you lost by trading away Jared McCain, Cam Carr can give you some of that relocation movement shooting, not quite to the level or efficiency that McCain does, but he can provide some of that back into the mix while also being a better athlete, a better rim finisher, and still providing some of that scoring against gap help that I think Philly's looking to put around Tyrese Maxey long term. This is one of the more athletic teams in the league with Edgecombe and Maxey in that backcourt. Yeah, Cam Carr to the mix is another high flyer, another quick downhill player. I think there's definitely some gas that you're cooking with there in Philadelphia if you do land Cam Carr at number 24. Pick 25, the Los Angeles Lakers here. This is one of my favorite fits in the entire mock draft. 25th overall, I have the Lakers selecting center Mo Krivas out of Arizona. This is one of the best rim deterrents in the entire NBA draft, and centers tend to get underdrafted. You've seen it in this mock draft, talked about it a lot last year. Bigs do not get drafted as high as they should. It happened with Walker Kessler as well coming out of Auburn. Some really good big men slide way further than they should, and it's because it's not a sexy pick. It's not going to get the fan base excited, but it really should, especially a guy like Krivas here for the Los Angeles Lakers, because when we dive into the numbers, this is the opponent's on-off numbers. So when Krivas is on the floor, they are shooting sub 50% at the rim against him. That's in the 99th percentile of all Division I college basketball players. His impact at the rim is incredible, and when he goes off the floor, Arizona's defense becomes a lot more susceptible to giving up rim volume. Not only do they allow three more rim attempts per 40 minutes, but they also give them up at or allow teams to make them at an 8% better clip without Krivas. So his rim protection numbers are incredible this year. He blocks a ton of shots. His block rate's very, very good. But everyone knows rim deterrence is more than just blocks. Krivas shuts off the paint, and I think those paint twos are a very good sign of it as well. Just allowing 33% on paint attempts that are non-rim attempts, and that's just unbelievable. So one of the best rim protectors in the entire draft, if not the best rim protector, and getting him with the Lakers seems like an obvious fit. Now, he's not as offensively gifted as a guy like Henry Vasar, which is a big loss for a team like the Lakers, not being able to select a guy like Vassar here at 25. But Krivas, I think next to Luka, next to Reeves, you can maximize his offensive talent by just having him roll hard, roll deep, get to the front of the rim, and be ready to catch lobs and play off the gravity of Luka and Reeves. So I think, if anything, if you're the Lakers, you would definitely prefer getting a defensive-minded big over an offensive-minded one, and Krivas definitely fits that bill there at 25. Pick 26, the New York Knicks here now. I have them selecting forward Thomas Hauck from Florida. Now, Hauck, I've seen him going higher in mock drafts. I don't tend to look at a bunch of other mock drafts, but I do come across them from time to time on social media. And I understand it. I understand why there's a lot of buzz and excitement. He's a very good college basketball player. He's been awesome this year for Florida. I think some significant statistical improvements. But, I don't know. My comparison for him has been Dean Wade. And Dean Wade's a really good player. Dean Wade's been very productive. But I think Cavaliers fans can tell you, when Dean Wade's not making three-point shots, his value's a little more shaky. And I think the same is going to maybe plague Thomas Hauck a little bit in the NBA for a team like New York, where you look at his shot diet and he's good at the rim. He's a big, long forward. Right this season, he's playing next to Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu. He's playing as a small forward, right, positionally. But he's huge. So he's been very productive at the rim, but his touch not at the rim has actually been very bad, shooting 26% on mid-range twos, shooting just 36% in the painted area if it's not a rim attempt. And then the three-point shot, and this has been his most productive three-point season, still not great. Volume's very high, 136 shots above the break this year from three, but making just 32% of them. So, I understand, people are going to really like his size and fluidity, all of the eye test skills, but the advanced numbers aren't, jumping out to me. And to be honest with you, my eye test isn't either. I think he's a good player, not a great player. And I think he's a part of a really good system in college basketball where there's a lot of other size around him. And he's not tasked with being this consistent stopper or this consistent rim protector. And while I do think his size will be additive in the NBA, I do think he'll stick around and have a good quality NBA career. I don't understand some of the buzz for seeing him go in the lottery or seeing him go top 16. I'm a little bit more apprehensive than that. I have him here at 26 in this mock draft to the New York Knicks. Pick 27, the Boston Celtics. What a fun story they've been this season. Glad to see Jason Tatum back, healthy, playing basketball. The league's just better with him on the court. And 27th overall, I have the Boston Celtics selecting forward Allen Graves from Santa Clara. Not only have they unleashed Hugo Gonzalez this year, oh my gosh, the return on investment for them so far has been incredible. He has far outplayed what I was expecting for him. His rookie season has just been awesome. His defensive impact has been just unbelievable. It feels like he just makes incredible rotations. And I wanted to get another awesome player like that here for Joe Mazzulla in Allen Graves, who grew up playing point guard. Now he's playing as kind of this bigger forward for Santa Clara. And now I think there's something we need to talk about in just a second, but his steal and block rate are through the roofs. He's a guy who's been very impactful defensively for Santa Clara, who's produced multiple NBA players over the last few years. You think about Brandon Pajemski, you think about J-Dub before that. Allen Graves might be the latest Santa Clara Bronco to hear his name called in the first round. But I do have some questions, specifically his impact, where even though he's had all of these defensive stock numbers and everything, their defense has actually been slightly better with him off the floor. And I think it's because he's a little bit too gambly. And listen, I do like his talent. I think there's a role for him in the league, and I think Boston could definitely maximize him. Joe Mazzulla and their system and their ability to fly around, play with a lot of big, long forwards and wings. Allen Graves would fit into that like a glove. But at the same time, as gambly as you are, and yes, it's going to help you get steals, it's going to help you get blocks. Analytics Twitter is going to love you because you're one of the higher steal block rate prospects. The defense hasn't been better with him on the court, and there's reasons behind that, and it's because he's jeopardizing his positioning. Closeouts maybe aren't perfect because he's gambling for a steal in the passing lane, trying to block shots, he leaves his feet prematurely. There's a lot of different things that add into that. And again, it's not just all on him. Again, these net rating numbers and defensive rating numbers, there's a lot of possessions, there's a lot of things that go into that. But there's a reason Allen Graves, with all of the awesome analytics numbers for him, there's a reason he's not going top 10 in mock drafts. And As much as I do like him as a prospect, I'm very intrigued about his long-term future. I think Boston could be an awesome landing spot for him. There's also some trade-offs and questions that I have, even though his steal rate and block rate are through the roof. Pick number 28, the Minnesota Timberwolves here. This is, remember, that swap worse that they got with Detroit from their trade at the deadline this year. And 28th overall, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting guard Isaiah Evans out of Duke. Now, this is kind of a convoluted fit because Chris Finch isn't a huge big-time play call head coach. And I think Isaiah Evans in a maximized role would be a part of a lot of play calling because of his three-point gravity. When you run him off of flare screens, you're going to draw attention to him. And it's going to open up slips. It's going to open up a lot of other things for your offense. But with the Wolves really leaning this year into the Anthony Edwards is a lead guard. He's a point guard. He's going to have the ball in his hands the majority of the time. At times, Dante DiVincenzo can spell him from those point guard role responsibilities. But for the most part, we're all in on Ant being the lead guard. Now let's get some shooters around him. And Isaiah Evans, listen, the Wolves have played faster. Their three-point attempt rate as a team is up this season. Isaiah Evans is a dramatic shifter of the way your team plays because with him on the court, he'll take and make a lot of tough shots. Even with the shooting being a little bit down this year, he's still been a very effective and efficient shooter. He's a huge part of what John Shire and the Duke Blue Devils do offensively. He's played extremely well off of Cam Boozer's passing, and Isaiah Evans has opened up a lot of split action for them. This is a guy that I think just will add a lot of functionality to Rudy Gobert away from the ball. Right now, a lot of Rudy's value is, hey, let's set a ball screen, roll, force that low man help, and then let's get a cross-court kick pass off of it and then force defenses into scramble rotations, which that's all good and fine and well. But Isaiah Evans gives you a different kind of gravity off the ball away from Anthony Edwards that I think would be additive to Minnesota in nature. Again, it's not the best fit given Chris Finch's play style or coaching style, but when you look at Isaiah Evans, specifically the fact that he's shooting over 36% from three on some of the hardest, difficult shots in the entire nation, 91% of them are assisted, so this is the exact type of player that will bring attention away from Ant and toward his off-ball movement skills. And then he's also seen significant defensive development. He's way better defensively than he was a year ago. Not only does he look functionally stronger this year, but I think his attention to detail, his scheme recognition, and also his defensive footwork and play strength has all just been better too. So there's a lot of real improvements that Isaiah Evans has made, even though his three-point percentage is down this season. He's actually had a better year this year by a dramatic fashion than he did last year in his low-minute sample playing behind Con Knippel for Duke a year ago. Pick number 29, the Cavaliers here. Now at this spot, obviously a fun season for them. This is the least favorable of that Cavs, Spurs, Hawks pick. So San Antonio, who's been on an absolute tear as of late, now sends pick 29 to the Cavs. And I have Cleveland selecting center Ademara out of Michigan. This is one of the harder mock picks for me because I feel like Ademara should be a first-round pick. He's huge. At 7'3", like it's going to be hard to find a guy who maybe could have his impact on a permanent basis at this spot of the draft. He's massive. He's got really great playmaking feel, some tremendous scoring touch. Oh, and by the way, he blocks a ton of shots and he shuts off the paint extremely well. If you look at him from a defensive standpoint, Michigan is just dramatically better with him on the floor. And they've got a lot of other great defenders. When he comes off, you think about Morez Johnson, you think about Yaxel Lendeborg. Like, they have 3 first-round picks in their front court this year in this mock draft. And yet Mara seems to be the most impactful for them when he leaves the court because of the rim protection element that he provides to them. Their team rebounds better defensively with him on the floor. Big reason why is the longer shots, and he's able to protect the rim, turn down second chance opportunities at the rim by boxing out, securing some boards himself. But then it's really just the team block rate. With him on the court, they block 20% of their opponent's shots, which is just ridiculous. With him off the floor, that number is just down to 11.1%, which is a 100th percentile difference, a 100th percentile on rating as well. So he's just absurd. Now, he is very one-dimensional defensively, which is why he's not going in the top 15 or top 20 in this mock. He's going to play primarily in deep drop. I question his ability to be active at the level of the screen, and that is going to have some problems as well against elite pull-up shooters, some of the best in the entire world. Like, they'll be able to pick on Ademara, but one of the best things here about Cleveland with some of their possible losses because of the apron status and everything over the next couple of years, it's a good way to get cheap, big size on your roster, a guy who's ready to be impactful right now. I think James Harden can do a really nice job with Mara, maximizing him offensively out of the pocket. And as a short roller, if Harden still gets blitzed, there's a lot of stuff that Mara can do off of that. And then defensively, you can put him in the game, and if he gets in foul trouble quickly, or if you're looking for spot minutes, the scheme versatility is not super important because you have Evan Mobley, you have Jared Allen, you have two very good defensive scheme versatile bigs already. Mara is going to be that spot minutes guy for you in 4 to 6 minute bursts on night 7, night 36, night 47 of the regular season. And then you can use them sparingly in the playoffs for specific matchups. If opposing team's best player comes off the floor, maybe you check Mara in there so he doesn't get hunted so aggressively by some of the best players in the league. But there's a lot of great stuff that he can do. The numbers really love him, and I like him a lot as a prospect as well. The final pick here in the first round belongs to the Dallas Mavericks from that aforementioned Anthony Davis trade. 30th overall, I have the Dallas Mavericks selecting forward Dame Sarr out of Duke. This is a player who I think a lot of people are sleeping on a little bit, honestly. He has not been in a lot of first-round mocks from what I've seen. Again, I'm not actively looking at a ton of them, but I don't really understand why. As everyone seems to understand that the league is about roles and fitting off of other talent, Dame Sarr, who is very offensively limited at this point, I think that's the nicest way to put it, he understands that. He stands in the corner, he's ready to shoot off the catch, he's going to play his offensive role. He'll screen, slip a little bit, but he's going to stand in the corner, and he'll be a corner sitter and maybe cut occasionally. What he does is he defends. He defends, and he defends extremely well, especially on the ball. And I wanted to look at some of the opponent on-off numbers to really paint that picture, because he impacts the basketball. He forces misses. And while it doesn't necessarily come with all of these gaudy steal and block rate numbers that the analytics crew loves, when you get into the actual team numbers and you understand what's happening and you watch enough games to know what's actually occurring on the floor, you're going to see his impact. With him on the court, opponents are shooting just 31% on mid-range two-pointers. Compare that to over 38% without him on the floor this year against Duke. Now, you look at above the break threes. Teams typically against Duke shoot over 34% from three on above the break threes without Sarr on the floor. How about 28.3% with him on the court? And by the way, they shoot way worse from the corner too, because you don't need to send guys into rotation as much, because Dame Sarr is one of the best screen nav players in the entire draft. He defends the ball extremely well. He's long, he's gifted, he's got great anticipation on when to challenge, doesn't leave his feet too prematurely, doesn't foul a crazy amount either. This guy's really darn good. The Mavericks, as a Mavericks fan, I want this guy on my team. If we get AJ Dybantsa, we have Cooper Flagg, we need someone who's going to want to guard the ball. Dame Sarr is going to want to guard the ball. That's his role. And we saw it with Jaden McDaniels. He's been a huge success story for Minnesota. They drafted him in the 20s. I believe it was pick 28 in his draft class. The same year they got Anthony Edwards. That's been an absolute home run pickup for them. Dame Sarr can be a home run pickup for a team. Now, he's never going to be quite as dynamic as McDaniels offensively, but there's been some trade-offs for McDaniels on the offensive end as well throughout his career. He's not the best corner shooter. He's not the most reliable guy when it comes to attack and closeouts. He's quality at them. I think he's better than Dame Sarr in those areas, but what McDaniels has done so well that's made him really rich long-term in his life because he's been able to defend is his point of attack defense. And Dame Sarr is bringing point of attack defense to the NBA. This guy can guard the ball. He impacts jump shooters. He's extremely, extremely, extremely gifted. Very good at basketball, especially the defensive end. And with how role heavy this league is, you need a guy like Dame Sarr to fill that role for a team. Dallas needs someone who can be a stopper for them. And I think Dame Sarr, not only from a screen nav and technique standpoint, but also from a length, athleticism, and anticipation standpoint, he checks all those boxes defensively. This is a guy who wants to do that. This is a guy who will make his money in the league defending. And I think the Mavericks, if you get him at pick number 30, it's an absolute home run for you moving forward. Thank you all so much for watching. Really hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more NBA content. Comment Basketball Sicko if you made it to this part of the video, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.